Good day, I am Irma Jane Pagaura. Today, I will be explaining and proving Wilson Theorem. So, let us start. Okay, so Wilson Theorem says that if P is a prime number, then P minus 1 factorial is congruent to negative 1 mod P. To show that this is true, let's first expand out the left-hand side of this P minus 1 factorial. If we write it out in full, it's P minus 1 times P minus 2 on and on times 3 times 2 times 1. The strategy is to pair each number with this inverse, and because we're working mod P. The integers mod P are filled, which means other than 0, you can't divide by 0. So every non-zero number mod P has an inverse, so we should conceivably be able to pair every number with this inverse. But there are a few exemptions, and the exemptions are there are some numbers that are their own inverse. So let's see which ones those are. So if a number is its own inverse, that means it's a solution to x. To x squared is congruent to 1 mod P. Because x times itself, x squared, it gives you 1. Now, we can solve this congruence. Let's just subtract 1 from both sides. That gives us x squared minus 1 is congruent to 0 mod P. Now, we factor. That gives us x minus 1 times x plus 1 is congruent to 0 mod P. And now, we just solve this like we would in algebra. So now we just set each other factor equal to 0. So x minus 1 is congruent to 0 mod P. Means that x is congruent to 1 mod P. That's not a surprise. So 1 is its own inverse. Next, x plus 1 is congruent to 0 mod P. If we solve this, we get x is congruent to negative 1 mod P. Or to write it alternatively, you can write this as x is congruent to P minus 1 mod P. So 1 and P minus 1 are their own inverse, but every other number mod P can be paired with this inverse and it will be a different number. So now, let's go back to P minus 1 factorial. So let's take in group 2 with its inverse. Let's group 3 with its inverse and so forth, and we'll be able to do this with every number, the exceptions being 1 and P minus 1. Now, 2 times its inverse is 1. 3 times this inverse is 1, and so everything cancels out. And what we're left with is P minus 1, which as we saw just above is the same thing as negative 1 mod P. And this proves that P minus 1 factorial is congruent to negative 1 mod P. And this is Wilson Theorem. Thank you, and may God bless us all.